Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. I'm sure you enjoyed that opening remarks by Steve Novosad. I am here to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning. Katie Herbek is the head of mobility engagement for the Central Mountain region for Ford AV and Mobility, Business City Solutions Practice. It's an arm of Ford Motor Company focused on the future of mobility. In this role, Katie works with partner cities and other municipal entities to identify and understand mobility challenges and priorities. If you haven't been paying attention for the past several years, Ford is doing some really, really cool things that go well beyond building cars. They're very much engaged in the future of mobility, whether that's transit, whether that's micro-mobility, doing some exciting projects in Austin, which I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about. And of course, they're doing a lot in connected and automated vehicles. So Katie joined Ford in the summer of 2019 after receiving her MBA from University of Texas McCombs School of Business. She also has extensive policy experience. I'm in Washington, D.C., so I'm so glad to see that Katie has a strong background in federal policy, working in at the VA, at the Department of Education, and right in the White House. So I'm sure she has some very, very exciting stories to tell about that. She held a year-long fellowship with True Wealth Ventures and is the co-founder of Civic.io, a civic organization, innovation startup, working with mayors to reimagine the future. She has an MBA, a Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts, all from the University of Texas at Austin. So without further ado, welcome, Katie Herbek.
Thank you so much, Jason. Can you hear me okay? This is a new break for all of us. Great. So thank you for that introduction. Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, where a variety of folks are joining from. Thank you so much for joining me as I'm part of the kickoff and we begin Omniair's Global PlugFest Connected Vehicle Technical Workshop. Again, my name is Katie Herbek, and I'm with Ford Motor Company's City Solutions. I am joining you today from one of the host cities in my home in Austin, Texas. Before I dive in, I want to do a couple thank yous. Jason, again, thank you for that introduction and for your leadership at Omniair. Also to your team, Kate Oldham and Bonnie Buchanan. They did a tremendous job organizing this and talking the speakers through what to do. If there are technical difficulties, it is my internet. It is not anything that they did. Also, thank you again to all the host cities, but particularly to the city of Austin, to Jason, John, Michael, and to Hannah Barron and the Smart Mobility Office who worked so hard on this. I always love working with y'all. And to the rest of the Smart Mobility team, Christina Willingham, Alex, and Shelby. Partnership with you has been great. I'm going to talk more about our work in Austin, and you'll be able to see why that partnership and that relationship with them is really critical for the work that we get to do here. So I'm going to start my presentation. Hopefully y'all will see my screen pretty soon. Thanks for your patience as we're all in charge of our, our own tech, our own mobility. All right. So again, thanks so much for joining today. So since its founding in 1903, Ford Motor Company has been a pioneer in the automotive industry. We've always been focused on changing the way the world and people move. And in fact, nearly a decade ago, Bill Ford gave a TED Talk that may have surprised so many people. Our chairman gave this quote. He made a declaration that the smart cars Ford would build would require a smart world in which to operate, one that includes smart roads and smart transportation systems. And Ford was going to be a part of that world. And Ford Motor Company has, in fact, taken concrete action since then to be a part of building the smart world. In 2016, we founded Ford Smart Mobility. And then in 2017, we announced our investment in Argo AI in order to develop a virtual driver system for the autonomous vehicles we intended to build. In 2018, we acquired both Spin electric scooters and Transloc, adding respectively a micromobility solution and a microtransit solution to our portfolio. And then later this year, we will release the Mustang Mach-E, Ford's all-electric crossover vehicle. And we excitedly announced last fall the launch of the 2022 Ford F-150 BEV. Also in 2022, Ford vehicles will be equipped with our connected vehicle technology, C-V2X, or cellular vehicle to everything. So many of you are quite familiar with connected vehicles. For Ford, C-V2X is a highly advanced wireless connectivity technology, and it enables enhanced safety features and an improved driver experience. So when that is partnered with capable and smart infrastructure, it connects vehicles to the surroundings and to larger communication systems, facilitating the robust development and delivery of smart connected transportation throughout the world. For us, we're focused on China, US, and Europe, and I'll get to those later. Ford's inclusion of C-V2X technology is in line with the company's history of working to democratize the road and make it safer for everyone. And it's part of many steps we've taken along a journey that we're still on. And the transition from moving in-car technology to cellular to vehicle, everything outside the car, actually makes a ton of sense for the other steps we've taken in the past. If you think about the work we did with bringing the phone in the car and connecting it to the initial sync system. And now vehicles communicate and connect with the Ford cloud. So this is just that another step in taking it to connecting to everything. When Ford announced our commitment to deploying C-V2X technology in our vehicles, our focus was to make streets safer and less congested, because vehicles would be able to talk to similarly equipped vehicles, to pedestrians and cyclists via the cell phones they might have on them, and to smart infrastructure. This focus remains a key part of our vision for delivering smart vehicles in the smart world, that declaration that Bill Ford made in 2011. And over the past 18 months, we have been working very closely with our partners in those geographies I mentioned, China, Europe, and US, to further progress the technology. So I'm going to take us through where we're at and exciting developments over the past year to 18 months in those three geographies. So in China, we've seen some really great advancement and some exciting work. Currently, we're testing in 2 cities, Changsha and Wuxi. And what we're focusing on there are cloud-based V2I, or vehicle to infrastructure features, with plans to expand to more cities to really accelerate that deployment. By 2021, Ford will begin to actually produce its first V2I equipped models in China, making it the first market for Ford to deploy the C-V2X technology in vehicles, which is a really great update and progress that we've made globally. But owners won't have to wait until 2021. We are actually making some of those V2I features available to select Ford owners by the end of this year. So people have started to see that roll out via over-the-air updates. And what this means in China is that owners who are driving Ford models equipped with Sync Plus will be the first to experience these features in Changsha and Wuxi. And what will happen is Ford will be able to solicit feedback from these select owners and users to help build insights and even more experience in a broader commercial deployment. Part of this works because we're really able to lean in 2 important developments in China. And the first is the intelligent infrastructure deployment, in addition to 5G, which I'll get to in a second. So Ford China is leading our global development to test how C-V2X can actually work with Ford Copilot 360 technology. So that's some of our in-car and then outside of the car with the infrastructure. This new C-V2X and being able to communicate with the infrastructure will enable vehicles to receive updates about potential traffic developments or risks that are beyond what the vehicle itself might be able to observe. And this could provide a warning back to Ford Copilot 360 and actually be tuned into a way that perhaps the automatic emergency brakes could be applied if the driver doesn't do so in time. And so again, that's leveraging that intelligent infrastructure. We're also able to leverage 5G in China. It's a really important step in our connectivity strategy. And Ford of China is embracing the 5G technology and will gradually apply 5G-based C-V2X technology in vehicles to bring smarter, more convenient, and safer experiences to our Chinese consumers. We've seen some great progress in the two cities I've mentioned, and as we look to the future, Ford is going to continue to expand C-V2X technology in more cities to support China's intelligent transportation development. We've also seen some really exciting work in Europe and developments on the continent this year. And that began with the release of Local Hazard Information, or LHI, which is a significant step in improving driver safety on the road through connected infrastructure and vehicles. So what this does is, again, we're able to use information from drivers ahead from things that are happening in the car. And that might be a change in road conditions due to weather or an accident or construction. And those observations of the car ahead can then be passed back to cars behind if needed. So sensors are monitoring certain activities in those cars ahead, and that might be the use of emergency brakes, it might be turning on fog lights, the deployment of an airbag, or the windshield wipers turning on. Data from these activities in the vehicle is then sent to the cloud. It's computed and analyzed to determine the hazard location and whether a traffic incident has occurred. Previously, alert systems like this have relied on drivers inputting that information. But now, with the technology advancing, all of those data triggers are coming from the car itself, because LHI works autonomously to generate that information. And then after that information is analyzed, if it's needed, it can push out warnings, and it eliminates the need for driver input. So as I just mentioned, after the data and activity is analyzed, this hazard information is pushed out via a display dashboard. But another advancement in the technology is that it's only pushed out to drivers if it's likely to impact a driver's journey. And it's also designed to be really targeted, providing specific information if the driver needs it, to keep the road safer so people aren't getting unnecessary notifications, which we've seen previously. If you were listening to an AM station for travel information, not all of it applied to you. So you found yourself listening to a series of announcements that maybe actually weren't applicable. And now we can provide really targeted information about your journey. So in Europe, this local hazard information is already standard and free of charge for the first year in our Ford Pumas. And by the end of this year, it'll be available in over 80% of Ford Europe's vehicle lineup, passenger vehicle lineup. Another thing to note about this technology is that we have a tech partner in Europe, Here Technologies, and they operate the central cloud-based platform with information from multiple vehicle brands. And this is important of note because that means the benefit isn't limited to just Ford vehicles. So if we think about it, if the cloud is able to receive data from a variety of vehicles, regardless of brand and OEM, then we have even more data and more observations. So when the data is being analyzed and computed, you have a better source of it. You have more instances to know if a traffic incident did really happen and a warning needs to be pushed out. And so we see that as a benefit for everybody when it's not just for Ford vehicles, but all vehicles. So moving on to the US. So in the US, Ford is committed to bringing wireless C-V2X communication technology to new models starting in 2022. And before this, but specifically over the past couple of years, the connected vehicle team has worked pretty tirelessly testing and piloting features. If you attended ITS World Congress last year, you may have seen the F-150 truck and a spin scooter interact to navigate right-of-way and intersection. And you might have been able to see the notification in the vehicle that a scooter was coming and the vehicle should stay stopped. And those kind of experiences in the vehicle and then safety inside and outside the vehicle, we're really excited about continuing to test. Here's a list of some of our priority features. So emergency vehicle preemption is something that we're really focused on. Ford has a lot of strong partnerships across the US. We provide emergency vehicles like ambulances to a lot of EMTs and EMSs. And emergency vehicle intersection preemption matters because I think we've all been there where we're at an intersection. You can tell that someone's still going to go through an intersection because they can't see the ambulance. It's coming from behind you. And what this would allow is the connected vehicle would be able to communicate with connected and smart infrastructure, perhaps turning all of the lights red so that that ambulance can pass through the intersection safely and either get to an accident site or get to a hospital, which really increases safety for all of us. And I think it's something we would probably all appreciate, whether we were the person at the intersection and we knew to get out of the way, whether someone was driving the emergency vehicle, or God forbid, if we were in the ambulance, we know we could get to the hospital safer. And so Ford's really committed to that. Other safety features include just being aware of a stopped emergency vehicle on the road and getting that notification. You would know to move out of the way, to change lanes much earlier than just seeing it with your own eyes. Also, wrong way driving. If people are in a new place, if they've never entered a highway from a certain location, they can enter the wrong way, and to get that notification before you even turn the vehicle. So again, you're not relying on signs that you might be trying to read. As you can see in this display, the vehicle can speak to the pedestrian via the cell phone that they have, in addition to the infrastructure. And we're also focused on some tolling features, and this gets to a little bit more of that experience in the car. I think we maybe all have had a moment where we weren't entirely sure if the toll tag we had was going to work. I sometimes share the story. So Jason mentioned I used to live in DC. I moved back to Texas. I had to buy a car and a Texas tag, which I was excited to do so I could drive on roads. I was visiting a friend up in North Houston and needed to get to the south of Houston to visit my mom. And I realized I wasn't sure if my Texas tag would work. So before I entered the toll road, I actually pulled off the highway. I pulled up the internet and I called my brother, because my big brother is still a source of information for me, to see if it would work. And it wasn't because the signage was bad. It was like the one sign I read, I couldn't tell if Texas tag was listed. And again, I think we've probably all been in somewhat similar situations. And we know that toll authorities don't want that experience, because then I'm not sure if I should be on the road, and there's confusion about how a toll might be collected. So we're really thinking about that, because again, we know these agencies are looking for a way to simplify the process for themselves and for us as customers. There are some estimates that the cost of toll collection is in excess of revenues of tolls, even with the advancements that we've made with electronic collection. And that really has been a huge step in simplification, but there's more to go. So given that, Ford, along with tolling agencies, see a significant opportunity to further improve the usage of tolling systems for both customers and tolling agencies. So these tolling features are going to be an integral part of this connected future. Right now, Ford is testing a new approach to smart tolling systems by utilizing C-V2X technology to provide direct communication between vehicles and infrastructure. Ford is engaging in developing several prototypes, proof of concepts, and test deployments of C-V2X enabled infrastructure across the country. And in fact, we got to experience that here in Texas earlier this year. So if you attended IBTTA earlier this month, you might have seen our announcement about this testing. So we partnered with CTRMA, the Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority, and CAPCH. They were our external partners to do some different toll feature testing on CTRMA's toll roads here in Central Texas. It was a really great collaboration externally. And then internally, it took a ton of collaboration because we are in a pandemic, as you might be aware, which meant that a team that normally would have come down to test the vehicle wasn't able to do so. So they actually shipped a truck to me, and I got to join the C-V2X team for a couple of weeks. So in partnership with the C-V2X tolling product owner and C-V2X engineers and myself, and then my colleague on the AV team, we got out on the road. We were in the F-150 driving. I was driving safely, 2 hands on the wheel, and my colleague Kathleen was making sure that notifications were popping up in the vehicle. We were on the phone with our CVX team members and with our COPS colleagues to make sure that the vehicle was communicating to the roadside unit, to the infrastructure the way it was supposed to, and that the notifications were the right notifications in the car. We tested a fixed or flat rate tolling feature on a portion of our Southwest 45 toll road. We also tested some meter tolling, which could be used for road usage charges. And then on MOPAC, or Highway 1 here in Austin, there's an express lane. And so we were able to test managed lane features going on the express road, and getting a notification early before I made the decision about what it would be to join that managed lane, and then being able to do so. So that was a great partnership. It was fun to really get to see firsthand what these features might look like in a vehicle and for our drivers in 2022 and beyond. But our work with CTRMA really is just a piece of the work going on here in Austin. So as I mentioned, I've been able to work with the transportation department, and Ford's working on an ecosystem that will complement the city's mobility ecosystem. I touched on spin scooters earlier, which is our micromobility solution. People really discovered that this concept of micromobility is solving the first and last mile issue that a rider might have. So perhaps somebody lives near a transit line, a bus or a train, but the distance to get to that stop is just a little far. It's not the easiest walk. And jumping on a scooter can really make that a seamless transition to getting to mass transit, which eliminates congestion because it's, one less car off of the road. Another unexpected outcome of the pandemic is that scooters became a safe, physically distanced way for individuals to move around. So transit agencies across the country were doing truly tremendous work and are continuing to do tremendous work during this pandemic. In order to keep drivers and passengers safe, because they did continue to operate, they had to have some capacity limitations, which was obviously the right thing to do to keep riders really safe and feel confident in that transit experience. And so some riders were able to then shift to being on a scooter because we introduced industry standards in cleaning the scooters down in between riders. And then just inherently you were outside and you were physically distanced. And so that was unintended, but Spin was really proud to get to be a part of ensuring that essential workers like doctors and nurses and people working at grocery stores that were just so important to all of us in continuing to be treated safely by the healthcare system and continue to function as best we could during what was and continues to be a bit of an unknown and scary time. Again, Spin was thankful to be a part of that. Last year, we also had something called our City One Challenge here in Austin. That was another partnership with the transportation department, the Smart Mobility team. For City One Challenges, our Ford team partners with the city to understand a particular mobility issue. In Austin, what we identified is that we really wanted to understand access to health and healthy living, particularly on the east side of Austin, and understand any barriers to access to those things. And so we had listening sessions, we had community meetings and ideation sessions. And that resulted in a honing in on some very specific challenge areas related to health and healthy living. So we put a call out for solutions to those challenge areas. And if you could be a startup that had a product or a service, you might be a community member that just had a really good idea. And those were shared with everybody. And then 4 winners were selected to pilot their solutions. And hopefully those pilots become long-term, long-lasting solutions for the city of Austin. And lastly, in Austin, we were really excited because last year, Argo and Ford's partnership came here for Ford's self-driving service in Austin. And in fact, last week, was the 1-year anniversary of the launch of Ford AV in Austin. So Austin was the 3rd city Ford expanded its self-driving business and testing to in September of 2019. And what this means is that Ford will launch a self-driving service to move people and goods in 2022 in Austin. Right now, we're testing. So we're testing with our technology partner, Argo AI. And in addition to that, my colleague, Kathleen Bayreuther, who I mentioned did the CV2X testing with me, she's the AV market manager. She and the Ford Autonomous Vehicle team, they're working to build a business locally here in Austin. And that also includes working closely with the city of Austin to collaborate on building a service that truly works for the community and is a complement to the mobility ecosystem. The team is also doing a ton of listening. I think you might be picking up on a theme. At Ford, we really are trying to listen so we can think about the products and services that we're developing. So the AV team wants to hear from individuals and businesses in Austin. If you're tuning in from Austin today, please reach out to avatx@ford.com if you'd like to share your voice on what a service might look for you here. Because our ultimate goal at Ford is to make Austinites' lives better by providing a safe, accessible transportation solution that, again, complements the city's mobility ecosystem. So I've shared a lot today about our CV2X priorities and what we're testing around the globe, our plans for electric vehicles, our micromobility and microtransit solutions, and our AV solution. And hopefully what you heard from all of that is that Ford can deliver on its pledge to design smart vehicles that will help people move safely, confidently, and freely into the future. Thank you so much for your time this morning, for listening to me. I believe we have about 5 or so minutes left for any questions you might have. I will flag, as a reminder from my introduction from Jason, my background was about policy. And so if you have a technical question, I will definitely try my hardest to answer, but I might need to track down a fuller answer for you at a later time. So I'm going to go to the Q&A screen and see if anything is popping up. So far, nothing, but that's okay. We'll give it a minute. My time in education taught me that when you pose a question or you ask something of people, you should actually wait up to 20 seconds to see if anyone says anything, which feels like an eternity, but maybe that's a good tip that all of you can take away with you. But we did get a question in. So you work every day with government leaders who are testing and deploying innovative technologies. What is your advice to some of the early stage transportation technology companies who would like to deploy CV2X pilot projects in cities? It's a really great question. The thing that we get to do at City Solutions is really build relationships and partnerships. So we're not a government affairs team. We're really trying to understand what's happening in market. And so I think what's helpful for any startup kind of in any industry, but as we think about CV2X technology is there product market fit? Is your product solving a problem that the city has? And if it's not, that's okay. Perhaps there's another city to partner with. But if you are providing some really good piece of technology and solution, build that partnership, build a strong relationship with the city, make it easy for them to figure out how they could test with you, because cities sometimes have very specific systems that they have to follow, which a lot of folks might be aware of, but you might not be. And so learning what the city's process is, being a good partner with them, make it easy to test certain technologies. It makes the whole process a little bit easier in getting those pilots started and learning from them. We have about 2 minutes left, so if there are any other burning questions or observations, happy to have them. Or if y'all just want to chat where you are listening in from, that would also be potentially interesting for all of us to know where folks are calling in from today. Oh, great. We just got a question. So are we using CV2X or DSRC CV2X solution? So Ford's vehicles are equipped or will be equipped with CV2X. However, we have been able to test on dual mode RSUs. So while what is happening in the Ford vehicle is CV to X, we know that it can be compatible with a dual mode RSU, whether that's Capsch, Siemens. We have some other partners that we've been able to test with. So that part allows an agency or an entity to choose to build out their infrastructure the way they need to, that's right for them. And as long as it's dual mode, we are able to communicate with that. Thank you so much. And you're from Australia. I appreciate you both asking a question and saying where you're from, Harsh. And one last question, which I think I can answer. So what can and should state and federal governments do to help support this new technology ecosystem? So what has been really great is when we have seen partners take on sort of that agnostic approach. So I just mentioned that we can interact with dual mode RSUs. So when a city itself or CTRMA, for example, who we tested our tolling with, they said, we want to advance this technology ecosystem and we want to be able to do it with everybody. So that actually, it might seem counterintuitive, but allows Ford to partner because that agency was saying, this was a priority for us anyway. And so we're open to all partners and it smooths the path. The other thing that is, I'm thinking about Jason John Michael and just his genuine enthusiasm. The city of Austin, and there's other cities from across the country, where even if we don't have a pilot to run, the city is excited and they know that this technology is coming. And so we just stay in touch with them because then when we are ready to go, we know we have a partner. And I have another question, which I think I can answer quickly. For 5G V2X, is China the only testing place in the world? How about the US? So in China, what we're able to do is because of the much more broad rollout of 5G in China, we can really lean into that. In that location, C-V2X can still work here in the US on the bandwidth. And once there is a much more broader rollout of 5G here and it's much more ubiquitous, then that's what will happen here. But in China, it just happens to be there sooner. Okay, we are just over the 8:50 time, so I think I'm going to wrap up. This was wonderful. Thank you again for listening this morning, Jason. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. Thanks for your questions and letting me know where you are around the world. Have a great week at the Connected Vehicle Technical Workshop. Thanks so much.